Hey guys, so I got a question online about salt and sodium and how much someone should have per day for performance and stuff like that. And it's actually interesting about salt and sodium. So to answer the question, I thought it'd be a great video to do. I haven't done a video on sodium and salt. So just to take it back, right now, the daily recommended intake of sodium is around 2,300 milligrams per day. But I think it was the American Heart Association even said we should consume less. We should consume around 1,500 milligrams per day, right? Because we all know popular belief is about sodium and high blood pressure and things like that, and how a high sodium intake contributes to hypertension, and how hypertension increases your risk of developing CVD, cardiovascular disease, which right now is the #1 killer in our country. And it's absolutely true. Excess sodium and salt is not good. It does contribute to heart disease and high blood pressure, but it also comes into a balance, okay? Just like anything I take on in life, it's about balance. So yes, too much is bad, but what they're finding now is also too low sodium is also bad. You can even compare it to water. Our bodies are 70% water, but if we have too much water in a certain time period, we can die because we flush out the electrolytes that we need to function. However, if we don't have enough water in a certain time period, we will also die. It's with many different things in life, salt and sodium being one of them. If you have too much in excess, it is fatal for you, it's dangerous. If you have too little sodium, it is also fatal. And the reason being is because sodium is essential for life. It's an electrolyte mineral in our body that is necessary. We need it. Our body cannot create it. It's necessary. We need to have it for many different functions, such as balancing blood pH. It's essential for athletes for muscle contraction, right? If you ever done anatomy and physiology, you know about the sodium-potassium pump and how essential sodium is for having that muscular contraction. It's essential for efficient nerve impulses, communicating from our brain throughout our body, for water fluctuation and hydration within our body. It has a lot of essential things. That's why we need it. But the thing that we've done as a population is what it seems like we always do, is we always have too much of something, right? And too much of anything is bad, right? I guess it's not too much love, though. You always have as much love as you want, right? But anything else, too much of really anything is bad. So a lot of questions you'll get after that is, should I lower my salt intake? And this is where it gets kind of tricky, because yes, there are tons of studies and research out there that show too much sodium and salt is bad. It leads to hypertension, heart disease. It could create some ailments, edema, stuff like that. However, there are also studies out that prove too little sodium is also fatal. And these studies show that reducing your salt intake actually leads to higher cholesterol, higher blood triglycerides, and a higher risk of mortality, meaning you're gonna die sooner if you reduce sodium. And that's what's so tough about salt and sodium, because if you take tobacco, for instance, there's a ton of studies out, right, that show tobacco is bad. It leads to all different cancers and the degeneration and killing of cells, stuff like that. But there are no studies out proving that tobacco is healthy, like showing benefits of tobacco. So we totally know that tobacco is bad and it's off limits, and we should, stop having it. It's not the same with salt and sodium, because there's very different studies out showing these certain things. But when it comes into, like I said before, about balance, you need a certain amount of it. Now, what a ton of doctors also agree on is that salt is not the main contributing factor to hypertension, because salt is not the only contributing factor to hypertension. Sugar totally increases blood pressure, what they're showing. You can increase your blood pressure by being overweight. You can increase your blood pressure by having tobacco, smoking cigarettes. You can increase your blood pressure by having too much stress. You can increase your blood pressure by not being active and not engaging in physical activity and being sedentary. there's many different things. So one doctor even said, I was reading an article about it, he said, yeah, the majority of the patients that have hypertension, they have no known exact cause for it. They don't know if it's salt, sodium. They don't know if it's stress. They don't know if it's this. They don't know if it's that. So that's where this is really tricky. Is if you should have enough, you should not in excess with anything. You should not have too much of it. You cannot have too little of it though either, because it's very essential for your health. So then the question will come in is, you know, if I shouldn't lower it, what should I have every day, milligrams per day of salt and sodium? That's also not clear, because we vary so much genetically. Each of us are so different, so many of us respond differently to sodium intakes, just how many of us respond differently to carbohydrates and fats and what diet is best. You know, this is what I do with my clients. We have to find out what works best. It's the same with your salt and sodium intake. You know, there's certain guidelines though. If you're over 51, if you are African American, if you have chronic kidney disease, if you already have hypertension, high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, you are at a higher, you have a higher response to having sodium and increasing blood pressure. You are at more of a risk of developing higher blood pressure from that. So any of those categories fit you, you definitely need to keep your salt and sodium in check. However, there are no studies out proving that healthy, active individuals, if you have a higher sodium intake, it has a negative impact on your health. There's no studies out there. There's actually a study even proving, I think it was in Denmark maybe, that they did a study up to 4,500 milligrams of sodium per day showed no adverse effects in healthy individuals. So that's where you're gonna have to come to terms with, you know, what's best for you. Sure, follow the guidelines, but the 2,300 milligrams they're saying is not even enough. So take it from yourself. You know, I'm no doctor. Consult your doctor for what you should be doing. But however, if you're an athlete, and specifically if you're a low carb athlete, you really need to keep an eye on your sodium, because once you switch to a low carb diet, your kidneys change the way they handle sodium and salt. If you're on a moderate high carb diet, you retain water, you retain salt, you retain all these minerals. If you're on a lower carb diet, your kidneys switch and they excrete the sodium and water at a much higher level. So which is why you always see people who, if you're exercising and you're sweating, right? Sweat contains sodium, that's why it tastes salty. If you keep sweating and you're excreting all this sodium, but you're not replacing it, you're not hydrating yourself with water and the electrolytes needed, then you can get dizzy, you pass out, all this blood volume with your sodium is all messed up. So if you're an athlete, you need to be very, very precise about what you do with sodium and salt. And water is another big thing. Is like, if you're not hydrated, you can't properly function. And sodium is like, it's very essential for whatever you do in your cells, stuff like that. It's needed, you know. Water is needed, food is needed, sodium is needed, you know what I mean? So that's what you have to come to terms with. So with all that said, here's a few tips that I came up with that I'm not gonna say help reduce your salt intake, because like we just covered, maybe reducing your salt is not the best thing if you're not in one of those categories that I mentioned earlier. There's just some tips to help you control your salt and sodium intake, to keep you healthy, functioning properly, you know. So the first one I got for you is get rid of the processed foods. Certain data out there shows right now that 75 to 80% of sodium in the average American diet comes from processed foods, and 5% comes from, just 5% comes from home cooking, and basically just adding salt on your foods at your house when you make your meals. 5% of your daily sodium comes from that. 75 to 80% comes from junk food, processed foods. And that's because all the processed food contains sodium, because sodium is also helps increase shelf life, right? So that's why so many canned foods, processed foods, packaged foods, they all contain sodium. So that'd be my number one tip. Just get rid of the processed foods and you decrease your sodium intake right from there. I would say if you're gonna use salt and you're salting your foods, opt for Celtic salt or pink Himalayan sea salt. And that's because the white powdery table salt that most people use, it's highly, highly processed. It's like 95% sodium chloride, which is just terrible. The Celtic salt, Himalayan pink sea salt, those types of healthy salts, natural salts, they contain about 15% of the trace minerals, like magnesium, calcium, bromide, things like that are healthy for you, that are proven to actually increase trace mineral levels in your body. So if you're gonna use salt, get rid of the shitty table white salt that you use that's like so fine you can't even like grab it to throw it into. Go with the Celtic salt, go with pink Himalayan sea salt, and that'll drastically improve your sodium levels or just your health in general. It's just a better alternative to just table salt and all these processed salts out there you see. All right. Number 3 would be getting enough potassium. Okay, potassium it like partners with sodium to control blood pressure. The problem with what we're doing in a society, we don't eat enough potassium-rich vegetables and fruits, yet we completely overdo the sodium with the processed foods and whatever the hell else we're eating. It's actually, I think there was a study done that showed even if you consume twice the amount of potassium than you consume sodium, so if you consume 1,000 milligrams of sodium per day, if you consume 2,000 milligrams of potassium per day, you actually cut your risk of fatality and mortality in half. So get in enough potassium, get in the fibers and potassium-rich vegetables, the fruits, all that stuff. You need it. People eat too much salt, they don't eat enough vegetables and fruits. You need to get in the potassium. Both of those things work together, like I just said about anatomy and physiology. It's called the sodium-potassium pump. They work together in unison. So you need enough potassium, you need enough sodium, and in my opinion, you need more potassium than you need sodium, all right? And then the last one, like I said before, is just, stay hydrated. It's terrible when you see people pass out and they become dizzy, all that stuff. Not because they don't work out or anything like that, or they don't work hard, but it's because they don't take the basic principles to heart, and that's staying hydrated. You need to shoot for 1.5 gallons a day. At least 1.5 gallons a day. I mean, I usually say 1 gallon, but most people, if I say 1 gallon, they'll be like, oh, I almost got 1 gallon in today. Less than 1 gallon is shit. It's terrible, you know? You need water for everything, for transportation and nutrients in your body, to help you burn more fat, to help natural cleanser for your body. You know, you urinate. And it's another thing, when you get hydrated, you also excrete sodium from your urine. So you even need to replace the electrolytes there. We're talking about sodium and salt. So those would definitely be my 4 tips. It would definitely just get rid of the processed food. It's a basic principle, right? Just in balance. Like I said before, balance, like the types of processed foods you have and all that stuff. To switch the table salt, if you use it, to the pink Himalayan sea salt or Celtic salt. Believe me, you're gonna love it even better. It tastes so much better than the other processed shit. Believe me, it does. Number 3 would be get in enough potassium. You need potassium to balance out the sodium, and both are essential. Okay, but definitely you should have more potassium than you have sodium. And then number 4, stay hydrated. By far, you need water to do freaking anything. You know, you feel like, I think, what was it? Even just like a 2%, if you're dehydrated 2%, it slashes your performance. Just 2% dehydrated, it slashes performance level. So you just stay hydrated, you know. So I hope this video helped you guys. I hope you like that view behind me. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, all the mountains back there. We're basically in downtown LA, right on my rooftop again. I'll be doing my videos all up here. It's a scorcher out here. It's supposed to be like 108 today in Los Angeles. So, as always, guys, comment on whatever you want to see next. Like the video, share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel, and I'm telling you, I'll be very active here. So whatever topics you have, definitely let us know. And I'm very excited. The pre-registration for my ebook, the Calculating Your Macronutrients 101 ebook, finally out. Go to the link below. I'll link it below for the pre-registration. Put your email in there. Watch the video I have on that page about my personal journey with food and health, and why I decided to actually create the ebook. I'm really excited about it. It should be coming very soon. Pre-register for it. Put your email in there. You get an email when it's live, and you'll get the ebook for a discounted price. Only the people that get your email on that and want the notification are getting the discounted price. So go to the link below, click on it, get the ebook. I'm very excited about that. So as always, guys, take care. God bless.